Just because you were arrested for a DUI doesn't mean you're guilty. There are 5 common ways that we fight these cases in Indiana. So number 1, the first way that we fight, the first thing we're going to check, what's the stop legal? That's always something that we're going to check. Did the officer have a lawful reason to stop? And that can affect what evidence is allowed. We are always going to start there. Why were you pulled over? Why do we start there? Because the first thing an officer needs to do is he needs to have reasonable suspicion that you've done something, right? Now that could be speeding, a lane infraction, your headlights aren't on, he sees you without a seatbelt. Anything that he might pull you over for a ticket, that's a reason for him to pull you over. But did he actually have that, right? If he says, hey, I saw this guy going 100 miles an hour and he was swerving in and out of traffic and I was following him the whole time. I saw him doing that. And then we look at his body cam and that's not the case and he made all of that up, right? Well, then the stop wasn't legal. And so if that's the case, we might be able to get all of the evidence tossed out. So that's the first way. The second way, standardized field sobriety test. The tests are inherently flawed. Why are they inherently flawed? Because they're observational tests. A standardized field sobriety test, the officer is going to treat them as pass or fail. They're very subjective. Things like cold weather, things like injuries, things like wind, things like a flat surface, the shoes you're wearing, just your nerves, right? Most people get very nervous when they're pulled over by the police. They could have done absolutely nothing wrong. They get nervous. The officers give those tests, and they're very subjective tests. In fact, on the walk and turn test and on the one leg stand test, officers are even told, look, do you think this person maybe is overweight? Do you think this person might have a medical condition? And the officer can determine, well, I think that this person who weighed 150 pounds, I don't think that they would be good to do it. I think this person that weighs 400 pounds could be good to do a one leg stand in the middle of the night for 30 seconds. They're very subjective tests. And so when we look at those, there can be a lot of reasons why we can challenge those tests. Then we get to the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, right? Officers are trained in how to do that, but a lot of that is timing. So when officers are doing the pin thing, how long are they holding it out here? Do they actually do it correctly? Are they actually doing it right? If the officer's holding it up here, holding it down here, that's incorrect. So we're going to look at those because they are notoriously flawed tests and they don't actually do a great job of determining if someone is intoxicated. Number 3, breath test errors. Breath tests can be wrong. The machines require calibration. The procedure on how to calibrate that machine, it matters. The timing matters. There are medical conditions that can affect results. We need to check the records. We need to check the process. So a lot of times, if you're pulled over, officers are going to do a PBT, a portable breath test. It's the one on the side of the road. They're going to be like, hey, blow into this. And they're going to get a read. That's not admissible. Why? Because those machines don't get calibrated very often. However, if that machine says you're at a 0.3, the officer's going to be like, yeah, you're drunk. Right? He's going to be like, the machine's not that far off. Generally speaking, those tests are within the range of accuracy. But if that test says you're at a 0.08, it might not even be close to that, right? You might actually be at a 0.05. We don't know. But if they have you do a certified breath test, they're going to take you to a police station. And those, they have to maintain different records of when was this machine calibrated? What is the actual margin of error? Because there is a margin of error. We know that. What is the margin of error on this test? They're going to have you blow multiple times. Did the officer do it correctly? They have to be certified and able to use that machine. So that's something that we can challenge because let's say you have a 0.081, right? Well, 0.081 is above the legal limit. But wait, what if the margin of error on the test is 0.05 or 0.005? That would mean that actually it's lower than, it could be lower than a 0.081. And so if that's the case, we can challenge that. So that's number 3. Number 4, rising BAC. So your BAC, your blood alcohol content, can actually continue to rise after you stop drinking. And that means the number that an officer takes later on to the station or when they do a blood draw, that might not actually be an accurate representation of how you're driving. And the common idea is to think of it like this. Let's say you are at your house and you have, in the span of a couple hours, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drinks. And then you go drive. Well, that was over a long period of time, right? So you're probably already feeling the effects of that alcohol. So it might continue to rise, but you might have already been feeling it while you're driving. But let's give another scenario. Let's say you're at your house and you're like, hey, I need to drive to Walmart real quick. But before I drive to Walmart, I'm going to do 5 shots. Just real quick, 5 shots. And then you drive and within 5 minutes, an officer pulls you over. Has that alcohol had enough time to really be running through your body and make you feel intoxicated? Probably not. And so when we have that, when you were driving versus, let's say, an hour later when you're at the hospital, the number in your BAC that's going to show an hour later at the hospital is probably vastly different than what it would have been had the officer actually tested you right at the scene when you were pulled over. So a rising BAC can actually be a successful legal argument depending on when you drank, how much you drank, how long ago, things like that. And number 5, the report doesn't match the video. This actually happens more than you think. The officer's report says one thing, the dash cam or the body cam shows something different. these cases can be fought. And you can kind of think of this as almost a combination of a lot of the first four. Because maybe the officer's report says, well, I pulled him over, it was a clear night, there was no wind, and I saw him swerve a little bit. I saw him cross the fog line, right? And then we look at the video, and actually it was really windy, and it was really foggy, but we never see you cross the fog line. That's a report that doesn't match the video. What if the officer says he looked really intoxicated, his speech is slurred, his eyes are glossy, all of this stuff, he's stumbling around, and then we watch the video, and you look absolutely stone cold sober. The report doesn't match the video. The officer says you failed the standardized field sobriety test. Let's say you failed the one-leg stand test because you kept putting your foot down. He kept seeing you put it down, and then we watch the video, and you hold your foot in the air for 30 seconds. You do it perfectly. The report didn't match the video. This can be a reason that we challenge the case, and sometimes we get it dismissed, or sometimes you go to trial and you win. So these are the 5 reasons that we can actively fight a DUI case. So if you've been charged with a DUI, whether it's your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it may be, if you want the best outcome, the best thing you can do, don't talk to the police. Stop talking about your case with anyone. Get your paperwork, save your paperwork, get a defense attorney, make a plan. Because the sooner you make a plan and the sooner you can start preparing to defend your case, the better off you can be. So if you were arrested for a DUI or an OVWI in the state of Indiana and you want to know if your case can be fought, give us a call at the Marc Lopez Law Firm. It's 317-632-3642. And remember, always plead the fifth.